What's up, YouTube? Today we're looking at the Open Great League once again, and the team we're taking a look at today is Shadow Dragonite, Blastoise, and Steelix. Now the main focus of today's video is that Shadow Dragonite, and the reason I wanted to showcase this Pokemon is like Goodra, it has really nice coverage. It's got that Thunder Punch to defeat all the flyers and the waters, and then super power for hard hitting neutral coverage into a lot of the meta, as well as hitting a couple of its weaknesses for super effective damage of rock and ice, and even steels, which it has most trouble with. Most dragons do anyways. I've also included, on top of the weaknesses of this Pokemon, Clodsire. You might be wondering, why are you putting Clodsire here? And the reason is because Clodsire is a poison ground, and the current move set on Dragonite is that Thunder Punch and Superpower, which means you're actually completely walled charge moves wise, as Clodsire resists both those charge moves. The Dene as well, but that's kind of more obvious because you're already weak to Fairy. So just kind of have to keep that in mind when you're team building with this Pokemon. That said, I've got a Blastoise and a Steelix in the back, and let's take a look at these battles. Alright, into the first match, we've got Shadow Dragonite into Cradily. So this seems like it should be a pretty good lead, as Bullet Seed is double resisted, and I have a pacing advantage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay in and go for a Thunder Punch first, as Cradily users love to throw up a shield. They end up shielding a resisted charge move, and now I haven't lowered my attack or defense. So now I can put up a shield on the Rock Tomb, just matching shields with my opponent, overfarm a little bit here, and now go for the harder hitting superpower. Is the opponent willing to commit 2 shields this early in the match? No, they are not. Superpower knocks them out despite the debuff of the Rock Tomb. In comes an Azumarill. I'm going to reset that attack and defense drop by pivoting into my Blastoise. And Blastoise can absorb these play roughs pretty comfortably, and the bubbles are resisted. I'm now going to go for the Skull Bash here, raising my defense, making it even more difficult for this Azumarill to get rid of the Blastoise. And now a play rough should not be enough to knock out from this range, so even though my opponent does outpace me to the charge move, I should be able to hang on. I am going to watch for the catch here. The opponent goes for it. They try and catch on a Talonflame in the back, but I react in time. I'm able to make it to the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon connect, that does big damage. Back in comes the Dragonite. Dragonite gets the full Dragon Breath farm down, leaving with a charge move loaded. The opponent resigns the match, and we are able to take that win without even showing the Steelix. A bit of a neutral lead in the next match. We've got a Dragonite into Empoleon. Now the reason this is neutral, even though they're a steel type, is because I have super effective coverage for both my charge moves. I overfarm the first because if you throw right away, then they could sneak an entire Metal Sound and actually outpace you to the second charge move. So instead, I end up just shielding the first, and then I would throw in the Sempitite on the second. That said, the opponent pivots into a Altaria, but I've got 2 good answers in the back. So in comes the Blastoise. Blastoise can absorb this energy very comfortably. I believe 2 Sky Attacks might not even be enough to knock out. Let's find out. Sky Attack number 1, no. It looks like even with the Dragon Breath, it's not going to knock out. And now these rollouts have put them into a range where a Hydro Cannon will be able to knock out. So here comes Hydro Cannon number 1. The opponent puts up a shield, but I'm already at Hydro Cannon number 2. Is the opponent willing to double shield their Altaria? No, they are not. They let that go down. In the back is a Marowak. Marowak will be outpaced. We are able to make it to another Hydro Cannon. They are at 4 Mud Slaps here, so in comes Dragonite. Dragonite will have to put up a shield here. Hopefully they full send a Rock Slide. It's going to be close. The opponent goes for the Bone Club bait. Now it's going to be a race to the charge move. We get there at the exact same time, but the opponent overfarms, but that does not matter because we're able to make it to the Superpower. Superpower knocks out the Marowak from over 50% HP, and we are able to take that win. Okay, Dragonite into Moltres in the next matchup. This is an okay lead, but we have a lot of FPS lag at the beginning, but looks like our fast move did end up going through. Same with the opponents, as we are at half HP, but the opponent makes a really nice catch onto a Tinkaton in the back. But now in comes Steelix. Steelix, with that Thunder Punch connecting from the Dragonite, should be able to basically fully farm them down, even though my charge moves are completely walled here. Bulldoze is not going to do all that much damage. I'm going to go for the Psychic Fangs right away just to boost my Thunder Punch damage, and then I will look for a full Thunder Fang farm down. I should be able to survive. It looks like 2 more Bulldozes from the opponent. They can't go for Play Rough, as Play Rough is resisted. Here comes Bulldoze number 2. Yeah, it looks like 2 are not enough to knock out, especially without that debuff, but I'm not taking any chances. I'm going to go for the Crunch, and Crunch from this range should be enough to knock out the Tinkaton, and they do let that go. If they come back in with the Moltres, they're going to be hit for super effective damage, but no, in fact, my opponent is ABA weak to the electric typing. And that said, they're also ABA weak to Blastoise, so in comes the Blastoise. My opponent has nowhere to run with all 3 of my Pokemon here. They're basically core broken by all 3 of my Pokemon, which is kind of crazy. That said, especially with the Tinkaton out of the way. That said, they will make it to a charge move here, but it does not matter. I'm staying in. I'm just forcing them to throw their energy, because as soon as their energy dry, this game is over. They have no way of basically getting rid of this. Steelix. Steelix will look for the full farm down. I leave with the Psychic Fangs loaded as well to lower the opponent's defense, and then Dragonite should have a very easy farm down here, especially with 2 shields. I'm actually able to make it to back-to-back Psychic Fangs, so now the opponent's defense is 2 times lowered, and these Dragon Breaths are going to tear through the HP of the Lapras. The opponent sees the Dragonite come in, they throw their energy right away. I'm going to have to be respecting every single charge move here, but there's no way they're making it to 3 Sparkling Auras before I get that full Dragon Breath farm down, and we are able to take that win. Into next match, another Altaria. So once again, this is how I'm going to play out this matchup. I'm just going to go for the Thunder Punch right away, as we are both doing super effective damage to one another. And Thunder Punch from this range, it will not be enough to knock out, but it will put them decently low. The opponent actually puts up a shield, and now in comes Blastoise, but Blastoise would love to absorb this energy so that I can save my shields for that Dragonite on the lead. The opponent is staying in this matchup as well. What could they have in the back that doesn't want to see the Blastoise? It ends up being a Furret. So Furret, of course, will be able to make it to a Swift here in order to knock out the Blastoise, and I am just going to let this go. This forces the opponent to throw their energy right away, and that is exactly what I want. Back in comes the Dragonite. Because they threw their energy right away, I'll be able to go for a Superpower right away in order to pick up the knockout. Thunder Punch would have been enough to knock them out here, but Superpower definitely ensures that they go down, and now in comes Steelix. Steelix will have to absorb a super effective Flamethrower here. Do I commit the shield? I do. Okay. And then I'm probably just going to look for a full Thunderfang farm down, although the opponent has a lot of energy on this Altaria. They make it to a second charge move. I'm actually going to put up both shields on my Steelix, as my Dragonite is already pretty low, basically in farm down range. In the back is a Scizor, so that was a great shielding decision, as Scizor has no play into the Steelix. Thunderfangs are neutral, their bullet punches are resisted. I go for the crunch, it lands, the opponent tries to call the bait, but now that means I can go straight Psychic Fangs in this matchup. They're shielding up resisted charge moves. I go for the catch, I'm unable to get there, but that is okay, because even if they make it to a Trailblaze here, it will not be enough to knock out, and they can't make it to a Trailblaze plus a Night Slash. The opponent goes the double Night Slash route, but Night Slash, even without the, or especially without the boost, is not going to be enough to knock out the Steelix. We are going to get that full Thunderfang farm down. Back in comes the Altaria, but Altaria will be outpaced as they just threw the back-to-back Flamethrowers, and Crunch from this range will be knocking the Altaria out of the sky, and we are able to take that win. Into next match, we've got a Goodra on the lead. So, Battle of the Dragons. The opponent will outpace me to charge move here if they go for the Aqua Tail right away, which is why you see me going for the catch on the Blastoise. Unfortunately, I was a little bit too slow, but because I know this is only an Aqua Tail because they outpaced, I can let it go, and now I'm going to go for the harder hitting Superpower. Superpower actually grabs a shield from my opponent, so in comes Blastoise. Blastoise will have to absorb a super effective Thunder Punch here unless I commit the shield, so I do end up putting up that shield, and now I'm hoping that these rollouts will put them in range where a Hydro Cannon will be enough to knock out, but no, instead the opponent pivots into a Dusclops, and this is just a battle of neutral damage in this matchup. The opponent overfarms a little bit there, maybe trying to play to a CMP tie, but I do not go for it. I end up just overfarming. I'm now with the back-to-back Hydro Cannons, so I will be able to survive another Shadow Punch and then look to pick up the knockout with the Hydro Cannon. That puts them deep into the red. Unfortunately, not enough to knock out, but we know we can survive another Shadow Punch here, and instead of letting that, I'm just instead going to pivot into my Dragonite to force them to pivot out of that matchup, and now in comes the Steelix. Steelix has a shield. I will have to absorb at least one super effective Aqua Tail, but it doesn't do all that much damage, and I still have a Hydro Cannon loaded on my Blastoise. And I don't believe the Dusclops has any energy, so I'm going to look to pick up the knockout with the Psychic Fangs on the Goodra. In the back is yet another Scizor, and so this, I believe, is the Dan Ottawa team with the Scizor in the back and the Dusclops with the Goodra on the lead. I end up going for the crunch. The opponent no shields that. They end up coming back with the Dusclops, but Dusclops will be met with a Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon knocks out the Dusclops, and now I should be able to make it to yet another Hydro Cannon as Bullet Punch is resisted. This will grab the final shield from the opponent, and they're already so deep into the red health. They end up throwing their energy, maybe expecting that Bullet Punch to knock out, which means I will just let this go. They end up boosting their attack with the Trailblaze, but it's too little too late. We get the Thunderfang farm down, and we are able to take that win. Dragonite into Fearow on the lead in the next match. This is an okay lead, but once again, I have to overfarm on the first or else the opponent will be able to outpace me to the second because throwing on alignment would allow them to outpace. They go for that Drill Peck right away. I am going to put up the shield and now go for the Thunder Punch after one more Dragon Breath. Now I will be able to outpace the opponent and throw on the CMP tie, and I believe Dragonite should be winning CMP in this matchup, and the opponent recognizing that goes for the catch onto the Gastrodon. I could have probably anticipated that and gone for the superpower, but catching on a Gastrodon is not the worst thing in the world because I can just stay in this matchup taking double resisted damage from the Mud Slaps, go for the harder hitting superpower, and then grab that shield. And now once I've grabbed that shield and with the Dragon Breaths, I've put them into a range where a Hydro Cannon will knock out. I'm going to go for the Hydro Cannon right away as the opponent does have back-to-back Body Slams here. Body Slam number one is going to connect, but it looks like even two of those will not be enough to knock out. Here comes the Hydro Cannon knocking out the Gastrodon. No, the Gastrodon hangs on with 1 HP, but I know I can live another Body Slam. So unfortunately, we'll have to take this chip damage and just let this go. We still have a shield in play. In the back is a Diggersby. The opponent does not go for the catch, which means a super effective Hydro Cannon will be landing here. Hydro Cannon connects. That does big damage to the Diggersby. Do they know about the residual energy on the Blastoise? They do not. I throw an alignment in order to get there, and Hydro Cannon will be enough to knock out the Diggersby. Back in comes the Fearow, but Fearow will be hit with the Steelix, and even if they go for a super effective drill run here, it will not be enough to knock out, so I will just let this go. It does about 50%. We get the full Thunderfang farm down on the Fearow, and we are able to take that win. Dragonite into Gyarados on the lead in the next match. Two better answers in the back, so I will be pivoting into the Blastoise here. Blastoise hitting for super effective damage with the rollouts. I was just going to go for a Hydro Cannon, even though it is resisted, because it will still do big damage to the Gyarados, especially with the rollouts adding up. But the opponent makes a pretty nice catch onto a Gastrodon in the back. And while Gastrodon does resist the rollouts here, we do have a pretty nice pacing advantage in this matchup. I mean, we pace pretty similarly. It's 4-3-4-3 for them, whereas it's 4-3-3-3 for Blastoise, but Hydro Cannon is a much better charge move than the Body Slam. I will just be under-tapping the move in order to outpace the opponent, and the opponent lets that go, and that is pretty nice because they're going to come back in with the Gyarados. Gyarados will be able to connect with a super effective Aqua Tail against the Steelix, but you know what? I can just put up a shield and then look for a full double super effective Thunderfang farm down, but the opponent has other plans. They come in with a Credillia in the back. This is an Acid Credillia at that. I'm going to go for the Thunder Punch bait. We know Credillias love to shield. They have 2 shields left in play, so they will put up that shield. So that is an absolutely huge bait call. The opponent now will be able to connect with a Rock Tomb, so of course I will be matching shields with the opponent. Is the opponent willing to double shield their Credillia? Do they know that even though a Rock Tomb lowers my attack to the superpower is enough to knock out? They do, so they end up putting up that shield, and now they're going to under tap the move and connect with a Rock Tomb to pick up the knockout, and that puts us in a pretty awkward situation because now Steelix has to go for resisted Thunderfangs in order to basically get to a Crunch and knock out the Credillia, but Crunch is not enough to knock out, but we get the defense fall, and that is absolutely huge because now we should be able to Thunderfang farm them down. They go for the Grass Knot. That doesn't even put us into Aqua Tail range. They do get to the Aqua Tail, but we have over 50% HP, which means Steelix will be able to hang on deep in the red health. We're able to outpace the Credillia to the charge move. I knew I could get there before they got to another, so I end up committing to the Crunch. Crunch knocks out the Credillia, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Primeape on the lead. So this is a pretty good lead because Karate Chop and Close Combat are resisted. The opponent's going to pivot into a Florges, and I respond with Steelix. I don't really have a great answer to Florges in the back, as Chilling Water does super effective damage into the Steelix, and Trailblaze does super effective damage into the Blastoise. So I'm forced to come in with my Fairy type resist in Steelix, and I can just lower my opponent's defense every single time they lower my attack to just net neutralize my damage with these Thunderfangs, knowing that my fast move is doing quite a bit more damage than theirs. However, it's not looking like a good matchup for the Steelix, as they have such a pacing advantage that these Psychic Fangs are not doing all that much damage. They're able to outpace me as well, looking to connect with a Chilling Water against my Steelix, and I have no way of winning that matchup, so I'm forced to just let that go. In comes the Blastoise. These Rollouts are doing huge damage because of their 2 times lower defense, which means I can just look for a full farm down here and come out with a lot of energy. It just depends what does my opponent want to come in with. They come back in with the Primeape, but Primeape will be smacked with the Skull Bash. Do they respect the huge neutral damage of Skull Bash? They do not. It does massive damage, putting them into the red. They anticipate a pivot into the Dragonite, but I do not go for it. I'm now able to connect with a Hydro Cannon outpacing the Togekiss. They put up a shield, and now in comes Dragonite. But I have residual energy here, which means I'm going to be able to outpace the opponent, and I have super effective coverage with my Thunder Punch. So I'm going to look to overfarm in this matchup, go for the Thunder Punch before they're able to make it to Psyshock number 2. And Thunder Punch from this range, he's going to grab a shield from my opponent. They don't even have enough energy for a charge move yet on that Primeape, so I'm not worried about a snipe here. I'm going to be committing both shields, and now just watch for the catch. They go for the catch, I hold on to my energy, and now I'm able to make it to the Thunder Punch, and Thunder Punch is super effective damage against the Togekiss. Shadow Dragonite is a counter to Togekiss confirmed, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Dragonite into Stunfisk. This is actually not a bad matchup, especially considering we have two pretty bad matchups in the back. So I'm just going to stay in here. They will be able to outpace me to 2 charge moves, so I'm forced to kind of just let one go. But look at how little a discharge does from a Stunfisk. That's pretty abysmal damage from a neutral charge move. That said, I can now go for the harder hitting Superpower, and Superpower from this range puts them deep into the red. I pivot into Blastoise to absorb a super effective charge move, which seems a little bit silly, but the opponent ends up anticipating the switch and going for a Mud Bomb, not expecting me to catch on a Pokemon where it would be super effective. That allows me to outpace, make it to the Hydro Cannon, and that picks up the knockout. And in the back is a Annihilape. Annihilape is a great thing to bait out, as Steelix does not want to face it. And that's why Blastoise was such a good safe swap, because even though it's a water type, because its fast move is rollout, it ends up baiting out a lot of ground types and fighters, things that Steelix does not want to see. And then it has that Hydro Cannon for coverage, which is awesome. Back in comes the Dragonite. Dragonite will be able to connect with a Thunder Punch here. This will not be enough to knock out the opponent, but will do huge damage and put them into a range where Thunderfang can fully farm them down. I will put up a shield here, as I have 2 shields left, and I do not yet know what's in the back. I'm going to look for the full Thunderfang farm down. We do get it. What is that final Pokemon? It is a Furo in the back. The opponent instantly resigns the match, and we are able to take that win. Into the final match of the video, and it's another Credilli on the lead. But this time it is an Acid Credilli, but we're going to play it out the exact same way. I'm going to go for the Thunder Punch bait, hoping that my opponent puts up an early shield. Do they commit the shield? Yes, they do, and that is a huge bait call once again for the Dragonite. Dragonite will, of course, be matching shields here, but for some reason, all Credilli users think that after one Rock Tomb, they should be able to survive a Superpower here, but I've got news for you, Credilli. Here comes the super effective Superpower. It knocks out the Credilli. What's that final Pokemon in the back? It's a Charizard, so I'm going to pivot into the Blastoise. Blastoise ends up luring out the Primeape, and this is what I'm talking about. End up luring out the things that Steelix does not want to see, and now we have a Steelix and a Dragonite to take care of that Shadow Charizard there. They end up committing the shield. They're going to go for the Rage Fist right away. I'm going to have to basically throw on alignment in order to get to this Hydro Cannon here. I know a Rage Fist will not be enough to knock out, but the opponent only settles for the Rage Fist, which means we will be able to connect with a Hydro Cannon. This will do huge damage to the Primeape. They do end up letting that go, as they have no shields left in play. We get the full Dragon Breath farm down, only for the Charizard to come back in to be met with a super effective Thunder Punch from a Shadow Dragonite. This is Shadow on Shadow damage. It knocks out the Charizard from the sky, and we are able to take that win. Yeah, that is Shadow Dragonite in the Great League. I had so much fun running this Pokemon. It is truly a glass cannon, but it does huge damage, and throwing the baits and landing the superpowers, it feels so good. Having the Blastoise as a good safe switch option with Steelix in the back was really, really nice, as I kind of just explained on what it baits out. And then they generally cover the weaknesses of the Dragonite. Of course, things like Florges are tough for this team, and a Dedenne lead, you're extremely soft to a Dedenne lead. That said, Dedenne in the back is fine, because if they pivot into Dedenne, you have that Steelix. And if you see in like an Ice type, like a Dugong on the lead, you've got Blastoise and Steelix for that. So generally cover some of the weaknesses of the Shadow Dragonite, but there are those Pokemon that you have to watch out for. That said, I do want to say thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel: Benny Hemlock, Dr. Green Mustache, Eliana, Perry G, Blue Nation, Peter Rushworth, Chopless Clips, Sons of Code, Sohan Patil, and Immortal God. And an extra special thank you to the Legend trainer members on this channel: Andrew Pitton, Musachu, Speedster, Estros, Fastidious Boss, CD Slaskus, and Star Bonsai. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace!